I think we have everybody here except for Councillor Hutchison. Just give Councillor Hutchison a second to get checked in with his audio. Okay, I think he's connected now. Okay, welcome everybody. It is 8 o'clock. Before we start with the election of officers, just for the benefit of any members of the public who are watching tonight, I know that that all the members of council are here tonight. Pursuant to section 2.9 of our committee bylaw, when the mayor is present, the mayor is able to participate fully in the business of the meeting, including voting. We do have two other members of council with us tonight, and they are able to participate in the meeting, but they are not eligible to vote. So with that, we will get started with the election of officers. Do we have a nomination for the position of chair? Councillor Hutchison.
Okay, I had to get unmuted. I'd like to nominate Councillor Holland, please.
Councillor Holland, are you willing to accept the nomination?
I will. Thank you.
Okay, and do we have a seconder, please? I see Councillor Stroud. Do we have any other nominations for position of chair? Seeing none, all those in favor of Councillor Holland? All those opposed? Congratulations, Councillor Holland. You've been elected the chair. Do we have any nominations for the position of vice chair? Councillor Holland.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Kiley.
Councillor Kiley, are you willing to accept the nomination? I see you nodding yes and a thumbs up. Do we have a seconder? I see Councillor Neal. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. And with that, I will turn the meeting over to you, Councillor Holland. Madam Chair.
Hi. Okay. I think I actually had an opportunity to share nominations briefly before in my time on council, so it's very nice to be back. Thank you very much for having me. Okay, so we will call the meeting to order. And first, I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Kiley, seconded by Councillor Neal. Great. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in, oh, Councillor Stroud. Wait, sorry, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the benefit of members of the public, following the publicly available agenda does not have the applications. Is that because, just to question to the clerk, the applications contain confidential information and therefore it is not publicly available information?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, Councillor Stroud. The information is not confidential. We typically do not post the personal information on the website. It is available should a member of the public request same. It has not been our practice in the past to post all of the applications on the website, but should a member of the public request same, we would provide it to them.
Thank you for clarifying. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we will call the question on the approval of the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much. Next, the confirmation of the minutes from the November 18th meeting. Can I have a mover, please, to approve those minutes? Councillor Stroud, excellent, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Hutchison. Any omissions, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Next, any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. We have one delegation, John Sheridan, KEDCO Board Vice Chair, Yafan Huang, who is the KEDCO Board Director, and Donna Gillespie, CEO of KEDCO, and they're here to present to the committee with respect to the appointment of directors to the KEDCO Board. Madam Clerk, I believe that's 5 minutes.
Yes, you're correct, Madam Chair.
All right, go ahead with the delegation.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. We'll be brief, but I think it'd be useful to review the background here to assist the committee in its deliberations. So as per the memo that was provided to the city clerk, the KEDCO board has followed a thorough candidate review process consistent with the corporation's bylaws. The first step of that process was to determine the needs of the board with respect to the skills, the diversity, and the experience of the directors on the board. In terms of the experience, the board recommends that 3 of the current board members who have 1 to 2 years remaining on their terms should be extended. David Carnegie, the current chair, and Jillian Waters and Lindsay Wise, who have agreed to take on executive board roles in the coming year. With those 3 extensions, there's the opportunity for 2 new directors to be appointed. And with the 2 new directors, plus the new councillor representative joining the board, that would mean 3 new directors, which we feel would provide a good balance between continuity and experience and new insights to join the board. In the search process for these 2 new directors, we conducted structured interviews, which led to the recommendation to appoint 2 highly qualified individuals to join the board, Ann Vivian Scott and Kathy Wilson. These 2 candidates would bring the targeted skills that the board needs. They would also bring executive business experience, and they would also, by joining the board, improve the gender balance of the board of directors. So as I said very briefly, that's the background. Hopefully that's of use in your deliberations. Thank you for your consideration of our recommendations, and we'd be pleased to respond to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Sheridan. Are there any questions for the delegation? Councillor Kiley?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Mr. Sheridan. Mr. Sheridan, I'll ask the same question that I did when we saw you not so long ago, which is in the letter that we received from Ms. Gillespie, it talks about the ways in which the candidates meet the integrated economic development strategy, which is all well and good. But I'm hoping you could speak to the way that your preferred candidates would dovetail with City Council's strategic priorities.
Mr. Sheridan, go ahead.
Well, thank you, and I'll turn to my colleague Yafan here in a minute, but basically we look at the integrated strategic plan direction, and integrated, of course, Councillor Kiley signifies that this has been a joint effort, a very detailed effort between the city and KEDCO. And what the city and KEDCO determined, with the benefit of external consulting experience and a lot of empirical data analysis, that Kingston is well positioned for growth in 2 strategic clusters: healthcare and the technology opportunities around healthcare, and advanced manufacturing. So the two candidates, Ann Vivian Scott, first of all, is president of a company that is positioned squarely in that area in terms of advanced robotic diagnostics, measurement in terms of brain functions. She's also worked in the startup ecosystem in Kingston for many years, in Queens, in Partech, and in Launch Lab. So she knows that system very well. She knows that ecosystem very well. She's got the skill set, and she's in that space. Kathy Wilson, different background, works for a large international company, Parsons Corporation, which specializes in infrastructure, intelligence, using AI, using cloud computing. And she's very much versed in the whole area of advanced manufacturing. She also brings skills in international markets. She's worked in Taiwan, she's worked in Japan, she's worked in China, she's worked in other countries, as well as the Canadian domestic market. So we think those two individuals with those skill sets and that experience will serve the city and serve KEDCO very well.
Thank you. That was very fulsome. That's helpful to frame our decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Neil? Yeah.
Thank you very much. A couple of things, and I'm going to repeat myself because I think everybody's heard me say this before, including at the last couple of nomination meetings when KEDCO has come before us. I'm a little troubled by the idea that I know that it's part of your bylaw 1 that you present with an expectation that they get passed a slate of candidates. In conversation with the clerk's office this week, I verified that in fact that has never been moved, voted on at City Council. So I appreciate that is perhaps an expectation of KEDCO. It's never been, in my mind, and talking to some of my colleagues, it's never been in my mind an expectation or an automatic approval process at City Council. If anybody wishes to bring that forward through administrative services to make that a policy of the city, I would not support it, but that would clearly make it a clearer expectation. I'm really troubled, and I'll share this.
Sorry, Councillor Neil, is this going to be a question?
Yes, it is. I'm really troubled by the fact that so many of the people, we get 49 applications, for instance, and you've recommended a smaller number. Is there any reason, did you vet all 49 of those? Did all 49 of those people have a personal interview with your committee?
Well, I think you'd expect the answer, Councillor Neil, that no, we didn't interview 49 people. We did look at each and every one of those applications, though. We did look at the qualifications of each and every one of those applicants. And we compared that to our matrix of needs. We looked at their comparative experience that we thought would serve the board. That took us to a short list of 4. And the 4 we did interview, we were very impressed with, and we put all 4 forward for your consideration as a committee for the 2 openings. We're recommending 2 of the 4 because we think they rank the highest. There was also one development since our last meeting with you that one of those 4 withdrew. So indeed, we've got 3 candidates for your consideration.
I believe that, and I just confirmed it. In fact, there are 5 openings. So you're talking about 2 because your expectation is 3 that you're recommending should be slam dunks. And I'm just saying that that's not the way that nominations committee bylaw operates. So
I can appreciate that, but if I could respond quickly. First of all, this is a corporation. It's a board of a corporation where directors have fiduciary accountabilities and responsibilities and liabilities. So that would mean a number of the applicants who are putting forward interest for various committees of the city are not qualified to serve as directors of a corporation.
and my only point is.
Okay, sorry, folks. I think we're gonna get clarity on this, but we're not.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Neil, did you have another question?
I don't. Okay, I
Madam
don't know how to
Chair,
make my comment into a
I didn't
question.
respond to the first part of Councillor Neal's question. You're right, sir, that we're recommending the extension of 3 critical board members, 2 of who are going to take on new executive roles. If indeed the committee chose not to extend those terms, then there'd be additional openings on the board.
Great. Okay. So yeah, when we get to the vote, we will review the numbers again. Any further questions for the delegation? Councillor Chappelle?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My question is for KEDCO board member Yvonne Hall. I'm wondering how he's enjoyed his term on council. And the reason I ask this question is because last year, it was this committee that selected his participation. He was not recommended by the KEDCO board.
I'm sorry, it seems like that's a question or a facetious question. So I'm curious, Councillor Chappelle, if you could just
I'll
give.
rephrase the question.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm just wondering if the board member has enjoyed the opportunity to serve on the KEDCO board.
Thank you. If you'd like to respond, Mr. Hahn?
Yes, enjoy working for as a KEDCO board member. I can hear your question too. I can say yes, 60% yes, 40% no. Is that satisfying answer? I enjoy working with you personally last year, the year before. I think I'm more a science and technology guy. I'm very junior in the political scene, so I learn a lot. That's the part I enjoy a lot. But of course, Kingston is an exciting city. No matter what, I like to contribute. That's what yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the positive note. Thank you.
Any further questions for the delegation? Councillor Stroud?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question to the delegation. Anyone can answer. So the names put forward by nominations committee after deliberations to council, there is some overlap, but I think it's best to frame the discussion because there's alternative things being proposed, but I'll just read them out. Ryan De Silva, Kayla Kent, Constantine Mugenga, Anne Vivian Scott, and Jillian Waters. Those were the 5 names nominations chose to recommend to council. So I'm wondering, of those 5, which of those got face-to-face interviews is my first question. And after you answer that, I will have a follow-up question.
Mr. Sheridan?
I'm sorry. So the face-to-face interviews, Councillor Stroud, from that group were with Anne Vivian Scott and Kathy Wilson. The 3 current board members we didn't interview because obviously we're very familiar with their skills and their values they present to the board.
Councillor Stroud?
Okay, yeah. Okay, but you didn't answer my question. My question was, of those 5 names, Ryan De Silva, Kayla Kent, Constantine Mugenga, Anne Vivian Scott, and Jillian Waters, or did you? Are you saying that it was just Anne Vivian Scott that received a face-to-face interview of those 5 candidates that nominations
Yes.
showed?
What I was saying was Anne Vivian Scott did. She qualified in our short list. Jillian Waters is an existing board member who we know very well, so we did not interview Jillian Waters.
Okay. So you did not interview 3 of the 5 names that we recommended. So you really don't have any in-depth analysis from your process about 3 of the 5 candidates nominations chose.
Well, with respect, Councillor Stroud, we did look at those 3 candidates. Those 3 candidates do not have senior business experience. 2, I believe, are HR specialists who have not served on boards before or had senior business development type jobs. And I believe the 3rd is a machinist who, again, similarly doesn't have the qualifications that we think would be appropriate to serve on the board of a corporation. I'm sure they're fine individuals, but we don't think they fit for this specific challenge.
Okay, thank you. So here's my follow-up. For the purposes, because you understand, just to state it objectively, where the friction lies in this question is that you have an elected board of nominations that advises council and a council that is all elected as well, with public interest at heart as a motivation. And then you've got a list of members of the public that come to us, and we do not have the benefit of the KEDCO analysis in front of us. We don't have the detailed analysis by your HR people or by your board, your nominations board, or whatever you call it. We don't have those criteria. We don't have the explanations. We don't have any of that analysis. We only have the demographic information in front of us on the application, the little cover letters that each applicant writes, their address, things like that, demographics, and then their CV. So would it not be better for all concerned if we could find a way for the nominations committee to be informed by some of the same intelligence that informs the KEDCO board? Because on the one hand, really the only thing we hear from you is a positive recommendation for a number of names that exactly fits the number of openings, rather than a pool of qualified candidates that have been vetted by your organization and that we can cross-reference with the demographic information and the priorities that we may identify as the nominations board. There is a way to have both methods merged to have an outcome that probably would have the support of the majority of council without the controversy. What do you say to that suggestion?
Well, I think you raise a very good point, as I think anybody viewing the deliberations you went through the first meeting would appreciate and understand. You have a very, very difficult challenge. You're looking at a very large applicant pool with 49 different people. And in many cases, you don't know many details about their background or qualifications. So I think there's certainly room to improve this process. And I think that was discussed at the last council meeting. If we can provide further information to assist you on specific candidates, we would certainly be willing to do so.
Thank you.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is this another follow-up question or?
No, maybe I'll just repeat the question that I did at the first meeting to Mr. Sheridan, which was, does he understand the position it puts us in? He sort of implied that in his latest answer, but do you understand the position it puts us in as elected representatives with no administrative support and the way that the information comes to us, and when faced with specific limited number of positive recommendations from KEDCO that seem to imply that we should just, to use an overused phrase, rubber stamp the recommendations from KEDCO, a board which is not elected the same way as the nominations committee is elected, and the optics of that. And that was my question last time. I'm wondering if you wanted to respond again.
Well, I understand the difficulty you're describing. From our perspective, it's equally difficult and frustrating because we spent significant amount of time analyzing the qualifications of the candidates, looking at them compared to a matrix of needs that the board has, and then doing structured interviews with each of the candidates. And to some degree, that was totally not considered in the deliberations the last time you met. So I think there's two perspectives on this. The other thing that I would say, which doesn't seem to be giving much attention here, is we have 4 representatives from City Council on this board, including the mayor.
Okay, so I'm going to move on. Are there any questions from other members of the committee? Councillor Kiley, you've already asked questions. You have another question? Go ahead.
Let's for the clerk, Madam Chair, if you'd indulge me just for a second. I was going through the package again in detail tonight. And I was wondering, David Leonard, I didn't see him in our
Sorry.
package.
Councillor Kylie, we're just doing questions from the delegation at this point.
Oh, my apologies. Okay, this
Yeah.
is
No,
another
that's
time.
okay.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I think we are finished with that then. So we will continue on. Next, we have, we have no briefings. Then we have one item of business. So we all know what we're here for, but I will read it. So at the December 1st, 2020 council meeting, consideration of applications to the Kingston Economic Corporation Board of Directors was deferred and referred to the Nominations Advisory Committee for further discussion. So the item of business is consideration of applications submitted for Kingston Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors appointment.
Pardon me, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the business item, I just thought we, in accordance with our procedure, we should ask the members of council who are here if they have any questions of the delegation.
Exactly. Thank you. Did any of those members, I see we have Councillor Hill and Oosterhoff. Do either of you have questions for the delegation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And no, I appreciate the delegation's input, and certainly as a board member and who's been part of this economic development for all the time. I haven't missed a meeting. I support their positions and
No questions though?
No questions. Thank you very much.
No questions. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Hill.
I don't have any questions, just I do have a comment, but I guess that's for later in the meeting, is it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks again, Madam Clerk. So yes, so we will be considering the applications. You have the package, hopefully in some form. And so we will be looking for 5 appointments this evening. Madam Clerk, you can please fill me in if you want. I think what I was going to propose, and I know this is somewhat in keeping with how things have worked with the committee in the past, is that given that there are 5 positions, that we go through the list, the numerical list that we have in the index, and everyone will have 5 votes. And that way we can come up with a short list, and from that point, get into further discussion. And I'm just going to ask if that's okay with everyone. I see Councillor Neal has his hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I guess we could repeat the process that we've normally gone through, but that's already gone to council as a recommendation from nominations. And we're now here, I believe, because the majority of council wanted us to take a sober second look at this. And so I think it might be in keeping to have an opportunity, as the delegation had an opportunity, to speak to kind of some of the broader principles before we get to talking about individuals. Does that make sense to the rest of the committee or to the chair?
It makes sense, but given that we had the business of this meeting is not to discuss the process of nominations committee, and we did have that discussion at our last council meeting. So I would say if the discussion is about what we heard from the delegation, I'm happy to have that conversation, but I think we should still do that in the context of forming a list of candidates that we deem to be appropriate for moving forward. But I mean, if it's a question for staff or a question, we've had the questions for the delegation already. So I'm just, I don't know what further discussion about that is warranted at this time.
Well, we have a number of people who were approved, whose names were placed on the public record, who now may suddenly no longer be approved.
Right.
And I think we need to take those people into consideration, as well as the recommendations we've heard once again from KEDCO.
Right. Okay. I saw a few hands. Just gonna go to Councillor Chappelle, then Stroud. Go ahead, Councillor Chappelle.
Yeah, I was not unmuting, Madam Chairwoman. I, understanding that there was a great deal of frustration over this particular process, and that, you know, we had over 1,100 pages of resumes. I think it's in fairness to the great citizens that put their names forward to this application process, that we should go through every name and make a decision on whether they meet the profile that KEDCO is looking for, because there are names that were not considered and that are surely qualified. And I think it's a huge disservice to this community by not giving every one of these applications due diligence and due consideration. So when it's my turn to speak, depending on when we're speaking, I will go through the entire list. So I hope you have recharged your coffee. And there is no limitation on time because I've checked it before.
That's correct. Though we are still trying to determine, and I hope what we will come up with is a way to move forward that meets the objective of the meeting tonight. Councillor Stroud.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was, when I put my hand up, I was going to suggest what Councillor Neal ended up suggesting at the end, which was the shortcut to the decision-making point would be a short list made up of the 5 nomination committees recommendations and the 5 recommendations from KEDCO. That would be including them recommending returning members. As a short list, now there's some overlap there, so it wouldn't be a list of 10, but it'd be a list of, I believe it'd be a list of 8 names from those 2 processes. In other words, merging the 2 processes for deliberations. That's kind of what Councillor Neal was suggesting. However, and in contrast, what Councillor Chappelle is suggesting is that we do a process parallel to what KEDCO did, with the vetting of all, the screening of all the initial candidates to come up with a short list of their own based on qualifications. And I think if we were going to do that, it's an excellent suggestion, but if we're going to do that, we would want input from KEDCO spelling out exactly what they were looking for and the reason that their own screening process resulted in the short list that was 4 names and then 3. Like that criteria could be applied here by these members, the same process by a different group, which would be nominations, which we all agree has the authority to make these recommendations. So we could actually use the KEDCO, the method suggested by KEDCO if we had more information about exactly what those criteria were, and go through the names as Councillor Chappelle suggests to come up with a short list that way. That would be much more time consuming. That's the kind of work that the KEDCO organization did in their screening process. But it wasn't a public process, and it wasn't, you know, the members of the public weren't able to witness it. So we're kind of stuck if we either have to take a leap of faith and merge the 2, as Councillor Neal suggests, and discuss a small group of names to come up with 5 recommendations. That would be the most expedient, or we try to repeat the screening process, even using KEDCO, allowing KEDCO to give us that the exact list of criteria that they use. And I suggest that process would be too time consuming for the purposes of this meeting, so it would require deferral. If I don't see the utility of going through the names with each individual councillor giving their opinion on each of the names of whether or not they pass the screening process unless we have it well defined. If we were to do that tonight, I believe we would run out of time. So that doesn't mean it's not a good suggestion, but I'd like to hear what the rest of the committee thinks we should do about this second go round. And before we do, could we just have the clerk read us the deferral from council, because that gives direction to the committee about the purpose of the deferral. I think we need that read out so that we can frame exactly how to choose a way forward at this point. That is my suggestion. So question to the clerk.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So we'll start with the clerk. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, the deferral motion, which was moved by Councillor Hill and seconded by Councillor Osterhoff, was that the recommendation from the Nominations Advisory Committee be referred back to the Nominations Advisory Committee, for further review, with a recommendation to be provided to Council by December 15th, 2020.
Great, okay.
Thank you.
So there is a date there.
But no direction, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, sorry, excuse me?
No, I was just saying there's a date, but no direction to the committee about how to proceed.
No, exactly. Okay, so we're going to continue to hear from members of the committee on the process for this evening. So we'll go to Mayor Patterson. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I think my 2 cents on this, I think since all of us were around the council table when this did come up just last week, I think everyone can agree that ultimately it came down to a decision about whether to uphold the original recommendation from the Nominations Committee or to instead look at the recommendation from the KEDCO board, which was supported by their HR nominating committee. I know that the Nominations Committee did an enormous amount of work at their last meeting, going through a number of different discussions, not only on this board, but others as well. And so perhaps rather than reinventing that work, that perhaps we get down to what I think is ultimately the discussion that is at the heart of this, is basically to have that discussion. Now, Councillor Stroud has proposed combining the list and then doing it that way. That would be one suggestion, or just to do a straight discussion and vote whether or not to uphold the original recommendation or to revert back. That would be my suggestion.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Carley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, I wanted to endorse your idea of each councillor recommending 5 individuals, because I think that allows for a lot of synthesis that would happen in thinking through if we go with KEDCO's recommendations or the nomination committee. We can bring in information that we learned around the council table last week. So with that, I think we could have a discussion that's a bit more fulsome to ensure that the comments that Councillor Neal and Councillor Stroud echoed are considered, but at the same time, it stops us from very, very time consuming going through everyone. And again, the 5 people that we've put forward is in our best estimation what is appropriate based on what we've heard from KEDCO tonight and in the past, and then what nominations committee had said and what then council said after nominations committee. So if we each have 5, like you suggested, then we're bringing together a lot of information in putting those 5 people forward, and I think that would be the most efficient. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Councillor Hutchison.
I would support what Councillor Carley just said. It's in line, more in line with the practice of the committee, and it sort of melds what Councillor Stroud was saying. I see the virtue of what Councillor Neal and Stroud have said, but it does open it up a bit. And so I'm going to move that we follow a procedure as suggested by Councillor Kiley, which is each councillor gets to make 5 recommendations from the longer list, and then we will adjust the names, okay, to start off with, and then we'll have a shorter list, and then we'll move on to the actual decision-making process from that shorter list. And it'll be a little longer than some would like, but it'll also be a darn sight shorter than 49. So, you know, if people are taking this seriously. So That's my motion, and there's a seconder. You know, I think that's entirely in line with what Councillor Kylie said.
So is there a seconder? Councillor Kylie, excellent. Point of order, Councillor Stroud.
It's actually a question to the mover because he said each councillor. So do you mean each member of the committee, including the mayor, or do you mean each councillor present? Because if then we would have a quorum of council.
No. I don't think that would be legal. No, I mean the committee as comprised right now, which would include the mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, Madam Clerk.
I just wanted to highlight, Madam Chair, that Councillor Hill has his virtual hand raised. So before you move to take a vote on that motion, you might want to recognize Councillor Hill.
Okay. I didn't realize they get to speak to motions. Only to the committee, only to presentations and delegations.
They're able to participate in the committee. They're just not eligible to vote.
That's it, eh? Okay. All right. So, Councillor Hill.
Thank you. And I am very sensitive to the concerns that Councillor Neal and Councillor Stroud had about potential of this appearing to be a rubber stamp. So I'd just like to speak a little bit to process around that, because what I'm suggesting is that you consider looking at the recommendation that came from KEDCO with an eye to where the gaps are relative to what the needs of council are. So you have a group that's gone through a very significant process of making some recommendations to this committee for their approval. And I absolutely recognize the authority of the committee to make those choices. But they've gone through a fairly extensive process, and I think you would agree that it, whether you agree with the outcome or not, at least the process itself was thorough. So if the committee would see that there are gaps with respect to what the KEDCO board recommendations are, so it might be a gap with respect to gender, it might be a gap with respect to BIPOC representation, it might be a gap because somebody that they've recommended doesn't support the strategic plan of the city or the integrated strategic plan that's being developed, something like that, that would certainly be a point where the committee would be well within its rights to say, look, this is not an appropriate candidate. This candidate doesn't really fit the bill from the perspective of council. So I think that using the recommendations that come from KEDCO as your starting point, and then allowing you to make some considerations about the candidates relative to the things that as a council we would like to see happen might make the most sense in the long run. I guess I'm looking at it in terms of almost like planning committee to a degree. We have a lot of information that comes to planning committee. And that information is supported by expert statements from staff or from outside contributors of some sort. And we weigh that, right? And sometimes we say yes, or most of the times we say yes, and sometimes we say no because it's not in keeping with a particular concern or initiative that council considers more important than what that particular recommendation is. We do allow for that, and we do have some real trust, I think, in the sit on the board of directors for KEDCO, or the establishment of that board at the very least. In the same way, it's like we're asking them to do this work and to provide us with some information. They've gone to real efforts to make sure that the information that they have provided us is sound. If for some reason, in looking at that, we see that there is a gap, then by all means, that is the responsibility of the committee to say, what, we just don't think that person fits the bill here. But I think we have to give them at least the benefit of the doubt, given the amount of work that they've done, their ability to identify what the gaps are, what the needs are for that particular board, And then down the road, I mean, if there may be some things that we would like to see included in that board, you know, if, for example, we wanted to have a labor representative on that board or a social services representative on that board at some time in the future, that could certainly be part of what we ask for through the integrated strategy that we're developing, right? Just as Councillor Neal said, there are some things that we could down the road say, you know, look, this is something that we think is an important inclusion in terms of your board. We haven't said that to date, and I think the board has made a very honest effort to represent the needs of the board in terms of its mission, and I think recognized along the way the soon. So I think that if I was to make a recommendation, be so bold as to do that, it would be to say to look at what KEDCO is presenting as a slate. And identify if, look at, you know what, there's some things that are missing here. We need to give some consideration to a different process. So that's would be my input. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hill. Councillor Neal?
Thank you. And I appreciate Councillor Hill's speaking to what he thinks would be appropriate. I was doing my point of order because I think the motion on the floor is a compromise motion that recognizes the value of the 5 recommendations from both the nomination committee and from KEDCO. So I think it probably dovetails nicely with the points that Councillor Hill was making, but it allows us to have a full and total look at it. I just had one quick question, if I can, probably for Ms. Gillespie. My concern, and I know that we were kind of caught up unawares with police services around the whole idea of both gender equity, but also equity of representation. So I know that I took that into consideration as I was making my choices. Do you have, what's the gender makeup currently on the board, and what is the, are there visible minorities on the board? I know the one gentleman that the nominations committee put on last year, in fact, is a visible minority. But could you give us that information?
Ms. Gillespie?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Councillor Neal, we certainly do pay attention to gender and cultural equity. So with the current slate that's been proposed by nominations of the 8 public directors, 4 would be female candidates. And with the addition of the 4 council members, we get to welcome Councillor Holland to the board. So that would bring 5 women out of 12 to the board of directors, which I believe is the most balanced we've had to date. So that's a big step forward. In terms of minorities, I would say that there are 2 minority representatives currently of the 8 public members on the board. In terms of operations, we do have 4 out of our 7 full-time staff as minorities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we are still on the motion, which is to determine the process for the evening, just to remind everyone. Councillor Chappelle, go ahead.
I was waiting for the little symbol that says I'm unmuted, Madam Chairperson. So in terms of process, I just want to put it straight in my mind so I'm clear, so that I'm not surprised. We put forward 5 names, and then after everyone puts forward the 5 names, if there's synergies amongst the crowd, we can keep the larger ones. And then if there are a few of those people left on your list that had support after the first round of voting, we could have an opportunity to speak to each of our candidates to persuade the merits of the qualities of our candidates that we've selected before we have the second round of voting?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions? Or sorry, discussion on the motion? Point of order, Councillor Neal?
Perhaps I misunderstood Councillor Hutchison's original recommendation, which was Councillor Kiley's earlier recommendation.
Yeah, which was my original recommendation. So that we would do pretty much what has been done in the past, go through the list. Everyone has 5 votes. Everyone gets to vote essentially for their own short list. We merge those people together into a list of however many are at the top. And then we'll continue with discussion from there on that list.
I guess I misheard it, so I will go to the mover for clarification if I can. Councillor Hutchison, were you suggesting, or was I just dreaming, that we accept all of the 5 recommendations from KEDCO, and then we accept all of those that were voted on by the nominations committee, and from that list, we decide as a nominations committee who the 5 that go forward are?
Councillor Hutchison?
Just waiting for the unmute.
Yeah.
That was not my
Okay.
my
Was
motion was that
thinking.
each councillor will get just what the chair said, 5 votes. I mean, someone's going to vote for the PEDCO recommendations, I'm sure, and just make sure they're on there. And someone will probably, different councillors will vote for people that were suggested to council and were sent back. Now there's overlap there, so as Councillor Stroud pointed out, that doesn't even come to 10. And then there might be a couple of 3, I don't know, new ones. And then I think we'll have I don't want to put words in the mouth of the chair, but then we'll have a vote, and the low vote, whoever gets only 1 or 0 will get knocked off, and then I would suggest we do that right away, and then we'll be down to the essential number that we have to deal with.
Thank you for that clarification. I'll put on another pot of coffee.
Thank you. All right, so any other questions? Okay, Councillor, or discussion, Councillor Schwab?
The way that, yes, Madam Chair, the way that Councillor described it means that we'll be voting before we speak to each of the candidates we are proposing. And I have a difficulty with that because I'm certain some candidates may only get an opportunity to be on the list once, and no one will have a chance to speak to them.
Okay, so we will we'll vote on this motion, and if it does not pass, then we can work on the recommendation that you had proposed originally. But first of all, just check to see one last time. Any further discussion before I call the question on this motion? Okay. And seeing none, all those in favor of 5 votes each to determine a short list. And the motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, so then now just to make sure everyone is really clear, yes, we will call a vote on each name. My understanding from what the committee has just recommended is that it will be straight to a vote on each name, correct? And then when we have that list compiled, we will begin discussion and deliberation. So Madam Clerk, can you assist with calling the vote? Do you want me to call the names and we get the vote count, or who's doing what?
If you would like to call the names, Madam Chair, I will keep track as well. And I will also endeavor to do my best to make sure that each person only votes 5 times. But if everybody can keep in mind on the honor system, because sometimes that is easier said than done.
Yes, exactly. Okay, Councillor Kylie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through, I think the earlier question that was the wrong timing for would fit now. If I could quickly through to the clerk, I just want to be sure that I'm clear. I have my package here that Bill Dunford is stepping away, so would no longer be in contention. That's one question. And second is, where is the information for David Leonard? That was the only individual recommended from KEDCO that I couldn't find information for in the package. So those are just 2 questions that will kind of solidify my thinking.
Okay, yes, Bill Durnford has indicated that he will be stepping down. That's based on the communication that's attached to your agenda from KEDCO. I heard you mention Mr. Leonard's name earlier, and I presupposed what your question was. And I do see that it's not in the agenda package that was provided to you tonight, and that quite simply baffles me because the agenda package that you received tonight was a straight up duplication of what was provided as part of the larger agenda on November 18th. I did double check that Mr. Leonard's application was included in the November 18th package, and I can, if it assists the committee, I can email that application to you right now, but I can confirm that that application was in the original agenda.
Yeah, it definitely was. So that's what I was wondering. But if you could email it, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Mayor Patterson.
This is just a comment, but I do remember we heard from the KEDCO delegation that there was one individual that withdrew that had been considered, and I just wasn't sure if that's what that was.
Madam Chair, if I could input.
Yep.
The mayor is correct with that supposition. David Leonard did withdraw his application after the nominations committee meeting last time.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have 2 names that were on the original list, which are no longer for consideration. One is on your index. You should cross that off. That's Bill Durnford. And the second is not on your list and that not in your package. Okay, so yes, if people could please keep track of their own 5 votes, and I will begin reading the names when everybody's ready. Everyone's ready? Okay. Greg Anand. Isir Arafat. That's 1 from Councillor Chappelle.
Sorry, to you, Madam Chair. Sorry, Councillor Neal was voting.
Sorry, I can't. You're sitting back a bit far. Sorry, Jim. Okay, so that's 2. Thank you. Great. Okay, number 3, Renee Balzil. Number 4, Margaret Barrage. Number 5, Tristan Bliss. Number 6, Kelly Brintnell. Number 7, David Carnegie. Oh, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 8, Ryan De Silva. That's 1, 2, 3. Number 9, Chloe Drager. Number 10, Andrew Duggan. Number 11, Andrew Duncan. Wow. Number 13, Lawrence Elliott. Number 14, Michael Flaho. Oh, point of order.
Sorry.
Yeah, just James, Councillor Hutchison, go ahead.
I just want you to announce the vote count, even if it's 0.
Oh, for the zeros. Okay.
Yeah, because then we can keep track ourselves.
Okay. And James, did you have something?
Thank you.
No, I was just going to mention that Councillor Hutchison had a point of order.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So did we end on number 13? Lawrence Elliott? Okay. Number 14, Michael Flahoe. And that's 0. Number 15, Samuel Fox. 0. Number 16, Connie Glenn. 0. Number 17, Jimmy Hassan. 0. Number 18, William Heineman. That's 1 from Simon Chappell, or Councillor Chappell, sorry. Number 19, William Horton. 0. Number 20, Kayla Kent. 1, 2, Councillor Chappell and Councillor Stroud. Number 21, Ann Kershaw. Number 22, Alexander Legnini. 0. Number 23, Sarah Lewis. 0. 24, Greg Lightfoot. 0. 25, Arthur Milnes. 0. 26, Teresa Mitchell. 0. 27, Konstantin Mugenga. 1 from Councillor Neal. Number 28, Emily Monroe. 0. 29, Douglas Perkins. 1 from Councillor Chappell, 1 from Councillor Stroud. That's 2 total. 29, did I just do, was that Douglas Perkins? Yes, okay, so right. 30, Matt Porter. 0. 31, Raman Sharma. 0. 32, Paul Smith. 0. 33, Jeff Thomas. 0. 34, Alan Barrett. 0. 35, Anne Vivian Scott. 6. Number 36, Patrick Walker. 0. 37, Bill Walsh. 0. 38, Jillian Waters. 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 total. Number 39, Carol Weir. 0. Number 40, Janice Wilby. 0. Number 41, Kathy Wilson. 1, 2, 3. Number 42, Lindsay Wise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 43, James Woodland. 0. Number 44, Liz Zakos. And that's 0. And sorry, that was 44. Number 45 is Frank Zuring. And that's 0. Okay, thanks everybody.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
you need to do David Leonard.
No.
That
No, we've learned from the delegation that he's withdrawn.
Oh, my apologies.
Thanks very much for sending that along. So, okay, we, everyone's pretty sure they did 5 votes? Great, okay. So Madam Clerk, could you please provide us with the list that we've generated?
Certainly. So the individuals from this list that we just went through who have received votes are Sarah Arafat, there were 2 votes. David Carnegie, 4 votes. Ryan De Silva, 3 votes. William Heineman, 1 vote. Kayla Kent, 2 votes. Konstantin Mugenga, 1 vote. Douglas Perkins, 2 votes. Anne Vivian Scott, 6 votes. Jillian Waters, 5 votes. Kathy Wilson, 3 votes. And Lindsay Wise, 5.
Great, thank you. So that is a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's 11 total that we have on our list. So I know that some receive more votes than others, but since we're starting with this as our short list, we can have discussion on any of the 11 that have been listed. So that's what we'll do next prior to going to another round of voting. So if someone would like to speak to why they feel the criteria, what criteria they've used or how they feel the rest of us should be voting the next round, now is your chance. Councillor Neal. You're muted still.
Thank you. I've supported number 28, Constantine, for some time. He lives in the North End. He's an Afro-Canadian. He's very active in his community, and he had a very solid application form. And unlike some of them, this was his second choice, but I don't believe he was, and the clerk can correct me, I don't believe he received his first choice, which may have been police services. If my
Yeah, the application, in this application, it was police services.
yeah
Madam Clerk, go ahead if you wanted to.
yeah. So
Okay. Okay, thanks, Councillor Neal. Did you want anyone else you want to speak to at this time?
no, that's it. Thank you.
All right, other members of the committee? Councillor Kiley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had 4 of the 5 recommendations from KEDCO, simply because I think the argument around continuity is really important, especially the chair, who would only, it's proposed, serve 1 more year to help transition with the new chair. To me, that makes entire sense. And then Ms. Waters and also Ms. Wise, they're apparently in the 4th of 6 years of their board service and are willing to take on an executive role. So again, just for the integrity of the board of directors, having that leadership is important. Initially, I didn't have Anne Vivian Scott, but I changed my vote after Mr. Sheridan's answer around the integrated economic strategy and how that dovetails with some of council's desires, especially because her experience internationally. I think that's really important. So I changed my vote and ended up voting for her. And then the last person that I have that isn't recommended by KEDCO, but I think it's incredibly important, is Ryan De Silva. In reading through the application package, I read everyone who put this committee as their first preference. And he was the only one of the lot who mentions being a worker. He's a millwright. And I think that having workers' voice on the board is incredibly important. I mean, I can leave it at that for now, but I encourage councillors to please vote for him, because it's important to not just have executives in the Economic Development Corporation from my perspective, but to have at least one worker. And he is the only one on this list of people picking the committee as their first preference. That would tick that box. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Stroud?
Hello? Thank you. So first of all, to Councillor Kiley's last point, yes, that was also why Mr. De Silva stood out. And I thought Mr. Sheridan's comment in opposition to his appointment very telling. He said he's a machinist. He's actually a millwright, not a machinist. And his experience is in manufacturing. So he's not only someone with frontline experience working in manufacturing, he's put himself forward to be on the board at the same time. Like this is, in my mind, he stands out as unique amongst all of the candidates and was my first pick. And the nominations committee endorsed that. So I would like to say that he remains my first choice for that exact reason, because he has frontline manufacturing experience. And there's no one else in any of the candidates, successful or unsuccessful, that has that on their CV. To the other, I actually only voted for 4 as we went through the list, so I realized afterwards. But the arguments about continuity have to be taken with a grain of salt, because it's clear that a board always has as a priority its own survival, and that is sort of a given when we receive the applications and receive the recommendations from the board, which is why, regardless of what you think about the individual candidates, you can't deny that the endorsement of the KEDCO board, it must be taken with a grain of salt. It must be taken in the context of a board that wishes to, that has a reason for its picks. And that reason, from our deliberations, it's clear, and from our questions to the delegation, it's clear that it is not simply the vetting of the candidates that's in play. And therefore, if we choose, as Councillor Kennedy suggests, 4 out of the 5, and this was said at the time, if they were recommending a short list of 10 or 11, like we came up with just now with a different process, and then nominations chose from that pool, and all had been found, because out of 47 or whatever candidates there were, surely there was more than 5 that fit the criteria that KEDCO were looking for. He said they came up with a short list of only 4 plus the returning members, but I find it impossible to actually back up that position with fact. With the number of candidates that we have, if we had vetted them all with the KEDCO process that the nominations committee used, we would end up with a list of more than 4 people. So with that in mind, for the reasons, the compromise solution is not, as the mayor suggests, to put it to a straight black and white vote of either you're for them or you're against them. That is not what the second look was meant to do. The second look was meant to find a hybrid slate that consensus of council can be found for. So we have multiple minority candidates on this short list, and so the rest of my picks will be strongly influenced by the demographic as well as by the qualifications. So in short, the endorsement by the KEDCO board is not an extra plus. It is simply, in my mind, the way that these names got on the short list. And some of them I will endorse based on other reasons, but not because of that reason. And that is me explaining my selection process. Thank you.
Thank you. Point of order, Councillor Neal.
Just very quickly for the deputy clerk. Excuse me, that's a cold, honest. Some of these I know were appointed to other committees, and I've crossed off the ones that I can remember. Can you confirm as we go along, as we get to a shorter list, that we haven't already assigned any of them to another committee?
They're noted with footnotes, Councillor.
Oh, are they? Okay, I just have the original one, I believe.
Oh, okay.
The deputy clerk has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. James.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, I can confirm of the candidates that you've shortlisted, none of them are currently serving on other committees.
Excellent.
Right, okay,
Thank you.
That's helpful.
Thank you very much.
Great, okay. sorry, Mayor Patterson. When I see your name on the screen, I'm not sure what I should be saying. So, okay, go ahead.
You can call me anything you want. That's no problem.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would just like to speak in favor, certainly, of the incumbents, and certainly to respond to some of Councillor Stroud's comments. So there are only a certain number of citizen positions on the board. The idea is that a new member comes on, you learn how the board works, you learn, you get experience, and then you can advance and take on an executive position. So I think we've already heard that. There's a need for citizen members to take on executive positions because myself and the council members, ideally, we would not be the ones that are taking those positions. There's already 2 executive positions, people that are coming off the board. So if we discount the incumbents coming back, then you're not setting up the board with the right mix of experience at particularly a critical time. Over the last year, the board's been very engaged in putting together the integrated economic development plan that we're going to be discussing at council next week. And as a board member of KEDCO, I'm sharing this information with the nominations committee so you understand that ultimately there's a lot of work, and being able to step into this, now the pressure will be on to start to implement that plan. So having 3 people that were involved in the development of the plan sets them up then to be able to lead the implementation of it. So if we want KEDCO to succeed, I know that everybody around this table does, then I would suggest that that's one of the reasons why those incumbents are important. So I don't think that it's fair or right to discount them for any particular reason, but just to recognize that that mix is always important. And I would say that that's true for any board or any organization. I agree with Councillor Kiley's comments about Anne Vivian Scott. I think she's a tremendously strong candidate. And I'm certainly not going to speak against any candidate. I think that Mr. De Silva would be a great candidate as well. This isn't a matter of saying anybody that isn't qualified. It's always a matter of who is the best choice. And the only reason why I would argue strongly for Kathy Wilson. Not only was she interviewed and vetted and matched with the skill matrix of the board, but one of the things that's critical with the economic development strategy is that the sectors that we are examining will be healthcare innovation and sustainable manufacturing. And both of those have strong mix of public and private sector connections and interactions. And Kathy Wilson has tremendous experience in both the public and private sector. She's perfectly positioned to help kind of understand and bridge the gap in thinking that sometimes happens between those 2 sectors. She's a tremendously impressive individual. She actually asked to speak to me before she applied, and we had a great discussion. Quite frankly, she's got lots of other things she could do with her time, but she's willing to serve. She's very impressive, and I think she would bring a lot of skills and perspective to the board. So again, I just offer her for consideration. I think that certainly I would agree with the other comments about the other individuals moving forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, first I'm going to look around the committee still. Okay, Councillor Chappelle, go ahead.
Thank you through your chairwoman. I'm so pleased that the delegation referenced the fact of the KEDCO being a board of directors with fiduciary and corporate responsibility. And so of all the applicants that I reviewed, one applicant really stood out for me, and that was Douglas Perkins. This gentleman not only has served on health and safety committees, but he's been an executive director and a board member of a number of mining companies, human resources, president's chief financial officer, chief executive officer, board member and president, chief financial officer. He probably has almost as much as one of the delegations tonight as far as board experience, but in a different lens. And so to bring that professional board experience to help transition KEDCO into a professional organization that has that level of board experience moving forward to embrace this new cohesive and coordinated plan, I think is the type of candidate that would be very well suited for that governance and structure and making sure reporting is efficient and effective coming back to council. And for that reason, I'm supporting Douglas Perkins. And in addition to that, another candidate that really struck a chord with me was Ezra Arafat. This gentleman is a chartered professional accountant. He has an MBA specializing in economics. He does his own consulting business. He's got a lot of expertise in finance, accounting, economics, all the great things, a lot of synergies I'm sure he would have with the mayor. In fact, the mayor wrote a very nice letter to him. Hi, Ezra. Thanks so much for your note for reaching out for economic recovery team. I really appreciate your offer to help. I would love to have your input and ideas. At this point, my plan is to convene representatives in our hardest hit sectors first, and then expand out from there. So I will definitely plan to circle back with you and draw on your expertise and knowledge when we get to that point. Thanks again, Brian. So certainly this is a person that the mayor could support because he's already endorsed him through correspondence officially to him. And his name is Mr. Arafat. And so I'll be supporting him as well. And I will also be supporting Ryan De Silva. And I do appreciate the very great comments that were presented about Vivian Scott and Ms. Wilson. They will have my votes as well. I think they are two incredible candidates, and I have to agree that the vetting process worked quite well that was put forward by the KEDCO board, and I congratulate you on selecting those two candidates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, sorry, Councillor Hill, I'll get back to you. I'm just going to check Councillor Hutchison, or does anyone have anything further from the committee? Councillor Hutchison? Are you okay? You know? Okay, great. So Councillor Hill, go ahead.
Thanks. And just a couple of comments, mainly about just, I think, keep in mind what KEDCO is charged with doing, right? It's about leveraging the assets of the community to attract business. So the more people that are connected to the business community, the kind of folks that are going to come here and set up companies that are going to employ people in Kingston and support local companies for expansion. That's sort of what we're asking KEDCO to do. So, or ACTEV to do. So I think, although I really appreciate Mr. De Silva, I think, I think in future, if we want a labor perspective on the board, that's something that City Council should certainly ask for. But you probably, I'm sort of assuming and supporting what the mayor said about, and Councillor Cotty said about keeping the incumbents. You would potentially lose Kathy Wilson. And I think one of the perspectives that she brings to the board that is a gap is we don't have anyone who really speaks to issues around disabilities in the workplace and how that can assist us in terms of supporting companies in the community. So I really think she's an excellent candidate, as Mayor Patterson pointed out, and I think she does bring another perspective. And that is a gap that exists on the KEDCO board as it currently is comprised. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oosterhoff, did you have anything you wanted to add at this time?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. You're muted if you did want to say something. Okay. All right, so we'll keep going. Oh, you're on. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I won't say anything right now. But I appreciate Mayor Patterson and has said it very well, and I can't say it better than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so any further comments from the committee on the 11 on our list? And then I'll tell you what my proposal is for the next round. Okay, so then I propose we again go through with 5 votes each. Does this sound like it makes sense? Then we'll have another opportunity to speak to those names. There will be more than 5 likely. So there'll be another chance to speak at that time. Okay, so Madam Clerk, can we proceed with counting the votes again? Are you ready to go?
I am ready.
Okay. And I will read the names. Okay, so I'll say their number as well, where they're located on the sheet so everyone can find them. So this is number 2, Asair Arafat. It's 1, 2, 3 votes. Number 7, David Carnegie. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. Number 8, Ryan De Silva. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. Number 18, William Hindman. And that's 0. Number 20, Kayla Kent. That's 1 vote. Number 27, Konstantin Mugenga. That's 1 vote. Number 29, Douglas Perkins. 1 vote. Oh, 2 votes, sorry. Did you get that too? Yeah. Okay. Number 35, Anne Vivian Scott. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes. Number 38, Jillian Waters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes. Number 41, Kathy Wilson. 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. And number 42, Lindsay Wise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes. Great. Okay, so Madam Clerk, if you would like to just give us the next list.
Certainly. So my tally is Asair Arafat 3, David Carnegie 4, Ryan De Silva 4, Kayla Kent 1, Konstantin Mugenga 1, Douglas Perkins 2, Anne Vivian Scott 6, Jillian Waters 5, Kathy Wilson 4, Lindsay Wise 5.
Great, thank you. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've only eliminated 1 at this time, but that's okay. So we can have another discussion at this point. Councillor Carley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make a point, an observation based on the applications that we received. And by no way is this intended to talk to a person's character or their capabilities at all, but Ms. Wilson, Kathy Wilson, put KEDCO as her second choice. And to me, that's always an indicator. That's one of my first criteria that I scan for when I'm looking for participation in board membership, if they wanted more than anything else. And I recognize that she put her name forward first for the Police Services Board, which only had 1 position. So I'm guessing, I haven't talked to her, but I'm guessing it was a fairly close second. But I just want to point that out as a consideration that it wasn't her first choice. So perhaps in discussions with the mayor or those who know her currently on the KEDCO board, if she were to wait a year, and I suggest a year only because we know that Mr. Carnegie, if he gets back on the board, will just be in for a year to help with the transition with the new chair. Perhaps Ms. Wilson could wait a year and apply again, and this could be her first choice in 2021. So just a consideration. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Stroud is next.
Thank you. I was just to make an observation about the way the last vote went. There were 7 candidates, I believe, that got, I think 3 votes or more, and 3 candidates with 1 vote. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, 7 candidates who received 3 or more votes.
So we only have 5 spots, and we have 7 candidates with multiple votes, support from multiple members. I would suggest we either quickly go to another vote, and those who selected someone alone consider someone else. Because I don't think we have the chance to, mill around the convention floor and try to consolidate those 3 lone votes into one vote. So we either drop them now, recognizing they only had support of 1 member, or we vote again with that in mind, that we still, even if we drop them, we still have choices to make, because we still have 7 on a list with only 5 spots. So I don't know, I guess I would move, and you would need a second. I would move that we just proceed with the 7 candidates with 3 votes.
That's seconded by by Mayor Patterson. Thank you. Any discussion on that? I was going to propose something similar. Councillor Kiley?
For my benefit and maybe others, could you just repeat who those 7 would be, please?
Okay, so we have Anne Vivian Scott with 6 votes. Oh, sorry, you want the ones who would be remaining?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
So Anne Vivian Scott with 6 votes, Jillian Waters with 5, Lindsay Weiss with 5, Kathy Wilson with 4, Ryan De Silva with 4, David Carnegie with 4, Asir Arafat with 3, and Douglas Perkins with 2.
So Ryan De Silva would not make that round?
No, he has 4.
He has 4, sorry. Okay, yep, I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, no, you were seconding. Okay, Councillor Hutchison.
In the past, candidates that received the most number of votes in a round were considered elected or nominated. And it seems to me that that would qualify number 36, Anne Vivian Scott. And so we can follow what Councillor Stroud is suggesting, but normally that's an insurmountable amount, okay? And the methodology we've used is the lowest get dropped off, the highest get elected, as long as they're more than half. So, and that's almost always the case. So there's a couple from 1. So that's what I would suggest we do.
I consider that a friendly amendment then to continue with number 35 elected, and that would reduce each member's number of votes to 4, because there's 4 remaining spots, right? So proceed with a short list of 6. Of the 6. So to change my original motion, I guess, taking into account that friendly amendment, 6. A list of 6 with the number 35 already selected, which would be all of the candidates who receive multiple votes, which it turns out is not 3, but it's 2 or more, according to what the chair said. And dropping those with only 1 vote. So there would be a list of 6 with 4 spots and 4 votes per member.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is more of a hybrid situation where you're suggesting that the low votes drop and then the high votes are now automatically in place. Is that what I'm hearing?
I know, it might be simpler to just rule Councillor Hutchison's just out of order and have us vote separately on that. I'm willing to withdraw my motion so that we can vote on Councillor Hutchison's suggestion and just get that off the table, and then return with my motion at that point.
Okay, sorry. So just 1 sec. So you are withdrawing your motion, Councillor Stroud?
If it's going to be complicated, there's no point in
yeah. Okay, so we're not moving anything that Councillor Hutchison said just yet, though. Councillor Chappelle, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairperson. Understanding how this council embraces ranked balloting, what I would like to see, since we have an extra vote with the mayor's council here, is that we do not deem them to be elected until they reach 6 votes. So I would agree that Anne Vivian Scott elected, congratulations. But then we go through the other until all those successive people get 6 votes, because there is an extra vote with the mayor being present. So it should be able to be there even if there's an outlier.
Okay, So not everyone is going to end up with votes. But I think what I'm hearing from you, Councillor Chappelle, is something that Councillor Hutchison was also proposing and has happened in the past. So now I'm looking at Councillor Hutchison to see if you wanted to put forward the motion that corresponds with what Councillor Chappelle just said.
Yeah, I'm just endorsing the way the committee has worked in the past. That is on each round. So I'm moving that on each round, the lowest number of votes gets dropped and the highest number gets elected. It gets nominated. We're not electing anybody here. Nominated.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Chappelle? Yeah. Okay. Were you going to speak or were you seconding?
Just for clarification, I would second it. It does offer some expedience, but I'm wondering if the threshold could be 6 because there's 7 votes in order to get to the nominated point. That's all.
Right. Okay. So yes, we can include that. I think another point to make clear here is that when Councillor Hutchison is referring to the lowest number of votes dropping, that means if there are no zeros, if there are 2 ones as there are now, then the 2 ones drop. So it's okay, great. Is everybody clear on what our proposal is? Okay, Councillor Kiley, go ahead.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I'm not actually clear. You mentioned that we could include the 6 as the threshold for election.
Yeah,
I'm
so
not sure if that's a good idea. Can you talk about that a bit?
I think actually what I would propose or suggest is that we go through another round with the dropping being the criteria. But at this time, if everyone feels that 6 votes in this round is enough, then we could determine that we have nominated the person with 6 votes.
So it would be for this round only, but going forward it'd just be for the lowest dropping off.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that. That's fine. Okay, thanks.
I'm just trying to go with what I've been hearing, which is most people seem comfortable with 6, the person getting the most votes this time being nominated. Councillor Strong.
For the purposes of clarity and also for the to return to flow, I would suggest that if there is, rather than having both, as the numbers dwindle, you might end up with a situation where there are ties at both ends. And that has not been specified in this motion. I would suggest that a threshold of 6 is a good idea for that reason, because everybody gets 6 votes has the support of the committee. But maybe the way to achieve that is anytime anyone gets 6 votes, any member can make an immediate motion to nominate that member as a single. And if it passes the committee, you know, because if we end up in a vote where we get 3 5s and 3 3s, then what do we do? Right? Because in its current form, the lowest drop off and the highest are elected. So I would say that sounds simple on the outset, but it can lead to problems. And that we should, if we're going to try to speed things up, we should do it on a single basis, 1 nominee at a time. So maybe we need to decide on what the threshold is. If it's not 6, what is the correct threshold? 7, 5, 4. And but we should be nominating 1 member
each round of voting. Yes.
In a positive sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Okay. So Councillor Hutchison. You're on. Go ahead.
Okay. It didn't turn up that time. I don't think democratically you could make it any more than 4. That's a majority of the number of people here and on this committee, and that's the only fair way to do it. If you end up with ties, in the past we've picked them out of a hat, and however that might, work out. If someone's willing to bend and proffer their vote elsewhere. And it works out. That's generally how it works.
Right.
And
Okay.
the advantage of the motion I made, which I'm beginning to not recognize, is that we'll move along with some dispatch. And everyone will get a chance to speak and vote. And the number of those being elected slowly goes up, and the number to be chosen slowly goes down, but it's all taken care of. And
Thank you.
sometimes have to make adjustments because the
Yeah.
people voted aren't there anymore.
Okay, so and I want to make this clear to people maybe watching, that if we proceed along these lines, it would be a matter of one slot being filled with each round of voting, and therefore each subsequent round, each member of committee gets one fewer vote, so that we are gradually filling the slots. And I know, as Councillor Hutchison mentioned, this has been the process in the past. And what seems to be a benefit here is that then everyone has their opportunity to vote, to use their vote again. We're not filling slots in a one-off situation. We're doing it round by round, so everyone gets to maximize their votes. Okay, so Councillor Hutchison, you've moved that. Councillor Chappelle, you've seconded essentially what we're talking about. Okay, and I know there was some discussion about other aspects of that, but I want to just get this on the floor now. So that's the new proposal for the remaining votes. Any discussion? Councillor Sharp.
Well, first of all, I need to clarify, are we voting to affirm one candidate from each round of voting? And just leave it, and just that simple, because that kind of a simple motion I can support. But I would need clarified, how do we resolve ties? And I do not agree with drawing names from a hat, because ties with 7 members can be resolved by a simple vote. Ties between 2, you're gonna have a 4-3. Ties between 3 with 7 members, you still never have a second tie unless you go 3-3-1. And if you go 3-3-1, you have a third vote, right? That's the right balloting I'm talking about. This is all actually very, very much a transparent democratic process. So I think the simplest thing to vote on, and I asked the member if this is what he's saying, is that we affirm one member in the positive after each round of voting. Is that what he's suggesting? Because that is not at all what I originally suggested. But is that the motion?
Councillor Hutchison, I'm going to turn to you.
I could change the motion. Actually, I was saying, what I was recommending is that we adopt that as our methodology going forward, as it has been the methodology of the committee since I don't remember when, for probably 14 years. So, and I really don't know how we're getting away from it.
Okay, but sorry, what are you referring to?
Yes, be clear. What are we voting on?
Yeah, I am sorry. I'm going to get that straightened out. Councillor Hutchison, when you say that that is the way that it was in the past.
Okay, I'll just say.
Are you referring? Are you now speaking to? Is your motion to represent what happened in the past, or have you changed it?
No, I haven't changed it.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that this is the methodology we should follow.
Which was the one that we used in the past, which includes, is not doing what Councillor Stroud has suggested.
No, because it becomes automatic. If you get the highest number of votes, you're nominated. And if you get the lowest number of votes, you're dropped until sometimes it's clear, who's being elected, because you've filled all the spots at that point. And then at the end of the meeting, we vote to confirm all our decisions.
Okay, so I'm just going to clarify this with an example. So if we vote again now, and let's say 2 people get 6 votes, and that's the highest vote count, and 2 people get 0 votes, and that's the lowest count. The 2 with the zeros drop, and the 2 with the 6 can be nominated. If the top vote is only one person with 6, then only one person would be nominated. Does anyone differ on that point? Because we do still have the issue of the tie that Councillor Stroud has raised. The ties that are significant are the ties at the top and the bottom only, because we would vote round by round. Councillor Hutchison, I'm going to get to you, Councillor Neal. Just give me 1 second. Councillor Hutchison, is that the way it has worked out in the past?
Yes, if 2 people got 6, they would both be elected.
So then what has happened in the past does automatically address what Councillor Stroud has raised?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with ties still exists and always has. And there's no getting around it because you can't predict how this is going to turn out. It's too complex.
But I'm suggesting that the tie on the final spot is that's significant.
Yes, it's significant, and you can, you just have to deal with it when you get there.
Okay, so Councillor Neal, you're next.
Thank you. And I always thought I was a policy wonk. Every time we have a meeting, we end up having a very similar discussion, and we end up trying to figure out all of the possible outcomes of every vote. Could I suggest that perhaps the new chair and the new vice chair and anybody else on the committee that would like to join in, take half an hour sometime, sit down, and end up with a policy that covers all of these, so we don't have to every year spend an hour and a half that we'll never get back trying to remember how we've done things in the past. Just a suggestion.
That's a great idea. Wonderful. Okay. So I think we have clarified the motion and we've had some discussion. Does anyone have anything further? Okay, so we will call the vote. All those in favor of Councillor Hutchison's motion? Opposed? And it carries. Thank you. So we will continue on with now, Madam Clerk, considering what we have just done, is it clear enough to you that the person with the most votes that round has been nominated?
Yes, so that would be Anne Vivian Scott, based on the numbers I have.
Correct. Okay. So we'll proceed then with 4 votes each on the remaining candidates. Okay. So everybody remembers they have 4, and you can cross off number 35 who's been nominated. Okay, so number 2, Asir Arafat. That's 2 votes. Number 7, David Carnegie. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. Number 8, Ryan De Silva. 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. Number 18, we're also crossing off number 20. No. The people who got the lowest last time remain, right? Sorry, okay. So number 2, we're calling the vote now. Number 20, Kayla Kent. Number 27, Konstantin Mungenga. That's 1 vote. Number 29, Douglas Perkins. 1, 2 votes. Number 38, Jillian Waters. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes. 5 votes. Number 41, Kathy Wilson. 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. And number 42, Lindsay Weiss. 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. Madam Clerk, can you give us our revised list?
Certainly can. Yasser Arafat, 2. David Carnegie, 4. Ryan De Silva, 4. Konstantin Mugenga, 1. Douglas Perkins, 2. Jillian Waters, 5. Kathy Wilson, 4. Lindsay Wise, 4.
Okay. So Jillian Waters has 5 votes. We have Teresa Mitchell with 1 vote. So we didn't determine a threshold last time at the top, but we did say that we would drop the lowest vote. So we will proceed with eliminating Konstantin Mugenga from the list.
Pardon me, Madam Chair. I see Councillor Hutchison with a point
Yeah,
of order.
Councillor Hutchison, go ahead.
The motion passed said we would nominate the one person with the highest number of votes.
Oh, yes, that's right. Okay, okay.
So by my count, and I stand to be corrected here, that would nominate, number 38, Jillian Waters.
Yes, okay. All right. Though, are we also eliminating the lowest vote still? Yes, okay. So now we will continue on. We have now 3 of the 5 spots filled. And everybody understands that? Mayor Patterson?
I think we've filled 2 of the 5. We have 3 spots left to fill. Is that all right?
Oh, right. Yes, sorry. Yeah, 2 of the 5. Sorry. Okay. So we have 3 more spots, which means we each have 3 more votes. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? Councillor Kiley.
I'm feeling rather strongly about Mr. De Silva, and I want to pick a few arbitrary examples that I thought of while we were discussing earlier about the importance of having a worker on a board of executives. Talking about attracting new business is like having a student trustee at the school board, or it's like having a tenant on the mayor's task force for housing, et cetera, et cetera. We've talked about this many times, even having a labor representative on the economic recovery team. I think we need to signal to the people of Kingston that, again, while it's important to have executives with tremendous experience as they do, and it's a very tough spot to need to pick between some of these options before us tonight. That's also very clear. To have an economic development corporation that doesn't have a spot for workers, the workers who make these companies work, I think is actually fairly problematic. And again, that is not to impugn anyone that would lose in place of Mr. De Silva, but I think that is important that we have a worker on our economic development corporation. So I won't say it again. You've heard me say it a few times in a few different ways. We come to the conclusion on other files using the same principle of grassroots, on the ground, people making policy in a way that would understand how it impacts the majority of people affected. So I'm hoping we can do that again tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchison?
I point out that, and like I hear that, and I understand where people are coming from. And from my set of values, that's a strong argument. I would point out, however, that Jillian Waters is an employee. Okay, some of these people head up their own companies, and you heard from the delegation that that's a level of decision-making and experience and varied experience and widespread experience that's really important, because they're the type of people who know what the next step is, like, in an economic development situation, and what makes for a successful company or employment opportunity, depending on which side you want to look at and stress the most. And so one of the things, Julian Waters already elected, but I'll use her as an example. She is employed by Keys, and she was slotted to be the chair, okay, the next chair after Mr. Mike Carnegie. And that's really important to me because I can't remember when there was a community-based chair before, okay? And so I think that's really important. So I just put that out there. I don't know that it would persuade anyone or not, but it's something to consider. That we've in a sense done that. As somebody who works with workers, is what Ms. Waters does, right? To find employment, works with immigrants, works with the hard to employ, and or people that have challenges. So anyway, it's something to think about. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Chappelle, you had a point of order?
Just like the last comments, having already elected a person, my point is now mute.
Okay. Mayor Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, again, to circle back to a comment about or question about Kathy Wilson, and not only will again speak strongly in favor of her, but the comment about how she had placed Kedco as her second choice was largely because of a conversation that she and I had because of course, being at the Police Services Board at the time, I was also encouraging some diversity of candidates to go forward for police. So I would only ask that the committee please not hold that against her. That was more to do with. Thank you.
Okay, other members of the committee first, and then I'll get to you, Councillor Hill. Okay, seeing none, go ahead, Councillor Hill.
There you go. Thank you. Sorry, just to let you know as well, Lindsay Wise. Also, are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Lindsay Wise is also an employee, and just a reminder as well that Kathy does have the ability to speak on the board about issues of accessibility in the workplace. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. So seeing no one else who wishes to speak, I'm gonna.
Madam Chair.
Another vote. Yes, Councillor Stroud.
I just wanted to put in a word again for Mr. Arafat. I would, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's the only remains in this short list from a minority other than the gender minority, from a visible minority. Is that correct?
Well, we don't have, unfortunately, a way to determine an individual's background, given that we do not ask such questions on nominations. There's no self-identification required. So I think we will be hopefully finding a way to make a more straightforward, informed decision on such issues in the future. Councillor Chappelle.
Yes, he studied in Qatar, and so he's had education in the Middle East, so he would be a member of the visible minority group. I just want to clarify that for you.
I think it's important to note, though, that we don't know such information unless it is given to us about where someone's background, what someone's background is. And it is, again, the hope that we get better information in the future as we do the review of this committee. So, Councillor Stroud, go ahead.
Maybe you're right, Madam Chair, but I could say in the opposite viewpoint that of all the candidates that remain, all of them can be identified as a member of the privileged majority. No?
Sorry, what are you referring to?
I'm referring to race, Madam Chair.
Okay, so if that's the question, I don't know that we have a way to determine an answer. You all have the information in the package. And you're choosing to vote how you choose to vote.
When it was the Police Services Board, we received a very clear letter from the outgoing chair of that board that the board needed representation from the BIPOC demographic.
Okay, and this is going to be out of order. We're not actually having that conversation now. So what is your question for this committee?
It's not a question. It's an assertion that Mr. Arafat is that candidate.
The candidate for Police Services Board? I see you, Councillor Neal. I'm trying to get my own clarification. Okay, Councillor Neal.
It's okay. Those that understand what I mean.
Councillor Neal.
It's really presumptuous for us to look at somebody's name and determine whether they are a person of a visible minority. I absolutely agree with Councillor Holland. That should be a question for somebody to volunteer that information if they so choose. But any of these names could be a First Nations person, just because, and I appreciate Councillor Chappelle pointing out that he self-identified as being a new Canadian, but just because somebody has the last name Arafat doesn't mean that they weren't second generation, third generation, born in Canada, but have maintained their last name. So we absolutely need that information, but we shouldn't jump to assumptions just going by names. So thank you for allowing me that rant.
Okay, Councillor Oosterhoff?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just do similar to Councillor Hill, just to remind us that that the need for stability and continuity on the board is very real, and that I have been probably the one councillor that's been on that board more meetings than anyone in the last 3 years, and that things are just getting underway, and the strength of the board is very important. So I encourage that, and I also recognize the strengths of Kathy Wilson there, as Brian has spoken. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so seeing no other questions or discussion, we have now 3 remaining votes. Is everybody clear on that? Okay. Madam Clerk, are you ready for our vote count?
Madam Chair.
Okay, so I will just have to make sure my list is up to date. Okay, and so we have nominated Jillian Waters, and we have 2 with the lowest votes, Constantine Mugenga and Kayla Kent. So those 2 will drop, so please adjust your list accordingly. All right, so I'll start reading the names again. Asir Arafat, 1, 2 votes. David Carnegie, 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. Ryan De Silva, 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. Douglas Perkins, 0 votes. And Kathy Wilson. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out my votes. 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. Lindsay Weiss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes. Okay. So Lindsay Weiss is nominated. And that leaves us with 2 more positions to fill. Madam Clerk, can you give us the remaining names or the names from that round?
Certainly. Is there Arafat 2, David Carnegie 4, Ryan De Silva with 4, and Kathy Wilson had 4, and there were no votes for Douglas Perkins, so that was the lowest.
Okay. All right, so now we have 4 remaining. Sarah Arafat, David Carnegie, Ryan De Silva, and Kathy Wilson. Does anyone want to speak to any particular candidate? Okay, Councillor Chappelle.
Not only does Mr. Arafat have a CPA, CMA, and MBA, and is a person who's new to Canada, but has been very successful. He teaches QuickBooks and other accounting software. He's taught at the University of Knoxville. He's got a great deal of wealth of experience. He did executive training at the Wharton School of Business in Pennsylvania, MBA of Finance at University of Georgia. He's got worldly experience, American experience, Canadian experience. He's indicated to the mayor that he wants to help. The mayor has responded positively. I'm suggesting that he is a candidate that is very, very possibly a great candidate for us to consider.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Hutchison?
I just want to speak on behalf of David Carnegie. I've worked with him. He's very good. He did a lot of work at KEDCO on the board and on the finance committee. And, you know, he's well educated in that. I think we need to just demonstrate, he's demonstrated his works. And as but he will be the immediately past chair when he's on the board, if he's elected to nominated to the board. And that's important for the person who's coming in, because the former chair mentors the person coming in, and we've already nominated that person. And so from a continuity point of view, it would be important to the corporation to support the former chair as well, simply as a matter of supporting the strength of the organization.
Thank you. Councillor Kiley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I just want to build off Councillor Hutchison for a second with a question, perhaps to the mayor or to Mr. Sheridan, who appears is still here. Did I hear earlier tonight that Ms. Waters would become the chair? That was the hope. I remember it mentioned that she was willing to take on a leadership position. This is her 4th year of a 6-year term, but did I hear someone mention that she would be the chair?
Yeah, Mayor Patterson, go ahead.
Thank you. So what I can say is that election has not taken place.
Right.
However, that, to my understanding, has been the discussion. Obviously, the chair should be somebody that has a citizen member with that experience, and so Ms. Waters would be perfectly positioned, and my understanding is she's willing to take it on, and I think she would do a great job, and she would have my vote. So I mean, if that's helpful, I think that would be the direction I think the board's heading.
That is helpful. And then my second question is about the council composition. Councillor Hall, you're being added, but Councillor Hill, Oosterhoff, and Mayor Patterson are staying on. So they've been on the board for at least one cycle. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe I'm replacing.
Councillor Bohm?
Yes, exactly. So there is an increase in gender diversity, gender equity on that front.
Okay, so I just want to say quickly that I'm going to be switching my vote from Mr. Carnegie, with no offense to him, because I've also worked with him and found him very capable and willing to work, which was nice. I think that my votes have reflected KEDCO's desire to have that balance between new blood and old, for lack of a better phrase, with 2 incumbents already re-elected and 2 councillors and the mayor who will be staying on. I'm going to be moving my vote from Mr. Carnegie to Ms. Wilson and still going for Mr. De Silva for the reasons I've said before. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay, so we have 4 remaining candidates and we each have 2 votes. Madam Clerk, are you ready to count?
I am.
Okay. So we'll start with number 2, Esther Arafat. It's 1, 2 votes. David Carnegie, 1, 2, 3 votes. Ryan De Silva, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes. And then the final one is Kathy Wilson. 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. Okay. So Ryan De Silva had the most votes at 5. And Madam Clerk, if you could give us the remainder. So that would mean that Ryan De Silva has been nominated.
Yes, so the 3 remaining candidates that I have are Yasser Arafat, David Carnegie, and Kathy Wilson.
Okay. Great. Is anyone? So now we will have, so we have only 1 more spot and we have 3 candidates. And so you will have 1 vote each. So this, yes, is a good opportunity to speak. Go ahead, Councillor Hutchison.
Sorry, but I think Mr. Arafat, does he not get dropped? He had the lowest number of votes. Not
Yeah.
that I'm particularly
Could you give me the
interested in
numbers?
that, but
Sorry?
go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't have the numbers written down.
Madam Chair, yes, Councillor Hutchison is correct. Yasser Arafat had 2 votes, which is the lowest number of the 4 candidates from that round.
Okay, great.
So just
Thank
to confirm, Yasser Arafat was 2, David Carnegie with 3, Ryan De Silva with 5, and Kathy Wilson with 4.
Right. Okay. So we will have 1 vote and 2 candidates. And Councillor Hill, go ahead.
Well, I just really caution you again. I mean, not, I want to advocate for, I guess is what I'm saying, is David Carnegie. I think it would be a mistake for him not to continue in his role with ECDEV. I mean, he was instrumental in the work in developing the integrated strategic plan. His level of experience by comparison to the experience that any returning counselor would bring is very, very significant. So I would see the loss of Mr. Carnegie as a very significant loss. We don't anticipate that he will continue for a considerable amount of time beyond this term, but I just think in trying to ensure that Jillian has success as the chair, I mean, obviously there's a great staff to support her, but I think it would be a real mistake not to have Mr. Carnegie continue on the board at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Oosterhoff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just echo the words of my colleague there, Mr. Hill, and that I would urge support for Mr. Carnegie. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we will have only 1 vote and 2 candidates remaining. Is everybody ready? Okay. So we have number 7, David Carnegie. 1, 2, 3, 4 votes. And number 41, Kathy Wilson. 1, 2, 3 votes. So that's David Carnegie nominated and Ms. Wilson dropping off. Okay. So am I correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Madam Chair, you are correct. I just wanted to confirm that we will need an overarching motion to confirm those appointments and also with direction to bring them to council for December 15th, please, and thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so would someone like to move the approval of the nominated candidates this evening? And sent, okay, moved by Councillor Carly, seconded by Councillor Hutchison. Okay, well, congratulations to our nominated members of the Economic Development Corporation. I will call the vote. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, all in favor. Anyone opposed? Seeing none. Is that sufficient, Madam Clerk?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, so we have no motions, we have no notices of motions, no other business. Correspondence we received from Donna Gillespie, which is one in your package. The date and time of next meeting will be determined, and I ask for a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I see Councillor Chappelle has his hand raised.
Oh, yes, okay. Go ahead, Councillor Chappelle.
We will be having a meeting at some point to discuss the First Peoples Group appointees. So I'm not sure when that'll be, but I just want to put that on your agenda just so you're aware.
Great, yep. Thank you. Okay, so can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councillor Chappelle, seconded by Councillor Neal. All those in favor? Carries. Thank you very much, everybody.